Everybody, I just wanted to talk about our sponsor for today's episode, which is Join Cycling. And what is Join Cycling, you might ask? Well, it's the smartest training app for cyclists, whether you're racing, training for a big event, or just trying to get stronger on the bike for your life. Unlike rigid training plans, Join adapts to your schedule, fitness level, and goals so you always get the most effective workout, no matter how life gets in the way. And trust me, it does get in the way. With science-backed training, seamless integration with your favorite devices, and workouts designed by top coaches, Join helps you ride smarter, not harder. Download Join today and start training like a pro, and use our special code at join.cc/beyond-the-peloton and find the link in the show notes. Why is Join coming on, you might ask? Well, it's because Andrew and I have signed up for a big cycling event yet to be revealed later in 2025. And the wonderful thing about Join is Andrew and I both, we're family people. We have, we're entrepreneurs. We have businesses. We have this podcast. It's hard for us to get our workouts in when we need to. What's great about Join? You don't get the workout in. Or even today, I have an FTP test scheduled. Fantastic that I get to go do that right after this episode. But if I don't want to do that, and if it doesn't work for me, I just press the shuffle button and I get a new workout. And no matter what I do, the training plan adapts and continues me on my path to success with new dynamic workouts. It's fantastic if you're like me and you don't really like authority. It's tough for me with the coach sometimes. That's where Join really helps. So follow along with us on Join Cycling as we build up to our yet to be revealed event that we may have gotten ourselves in over our head with. All right, let's get into the episode now. Welcome back to the Beyond the Peloton podcast. I'm Spencer Martin, author of the Beyond the Peloton newsletter. I'm here with Andrew Vontz, fresh off Main Tech Week keynote speaking engagement. Andrew Vontz from the Choose the Hard Way podcast and Always the Hard Way newsletter. Andrew, how are you doing? We're going to run through, I don't know what we're going to run through, but we are going to talk about something. We will free jazz topics as we go. Professional cycling, I guess, technically ended last week. Cofidis was relegated. Uno X promoted. What's happening with Intermarché? We don't really know, but we'll try to figure it out and hit some of our off-season topics. But Andrew, I think I know what you want to plug, but do you want to plug anything before we get going?
If you haven't been over to the Choose the Hard Way podcast feed this week, go there right now. You were in for a real treat. As you know, Spencer, Dylan Johnson has become regarded as tire Jesus in the world of gravel. And no, he cannot walk on water. However, he did walk on gravel for 2 hours to finish Big Sugar, the finale of the Lifetime Grand Prix. I've got the full story of Dylan's big walk. We do a deep dive. I actually think that it's one of the most remarkable things that happened in the Lifetime Grand Prix this season. Quite an interesting story. Check it out. Choose the Hard Way everywhere you listen and watch. And you can, of course, also find that at the Choose the Hard Way Substack. Find that link in Spencer's newsletter. You can always get way up in the link tree at Hardway Pod on Instagram, or you can go direct. Just type alwaysthehardway.substack.com in your browser. Spencer, exciting times. I am fresh off Main Tech Week. As you can see, I have my hair done. Brazilian blowout. I'm trying to have that kind of Eric Estrada chips look. Big fan. And I, of course, have the Laufsegler in the background behind me. I'm preparing to gravel this weekend here before full winter doom sets in mid-coast Maine. And the tech community is thriving, I can assure you, after yesterday's Main Tech Week, which actually was pretty awesome. A lot of cracking here in the mid-coast. What have you got? What's top of mind?
Well, top of mind for me, where was Main Tech Week?
Main Tech Week was down in Portland, Maine.
How far a drive is that?
It's a short drive in Maine terms, just 2 hours down and back.
I'm having like PTSD flashbacks to growing up where we had to go 2 hours to McDonald's. I've become because of that experience, I've become so it almost makes me physically ill to have to do long car rides. Like I would rather fly to Tokyo than go on a 3-hour car drive at this point. But
the funny thing, Spencer, is I was actually thinking about you and some of our Front Range listeners today. because in the time it took me to get down to Portland yesterday, and I was on a panel talking about digital communities. There are a lot of people building vertical social networks, it turns out, in Maine. So we did a little bit of conversation around that topic. Talked a little bit about the community here on Beyond the Peloton, organized around the world's most controversial and hot takes in professional cycling, of course. And I thought about how in the time that it took me to drive down to Portland, that was roughly my commute to go, what, 14 miles in the Bay Area used to take me an hour and a half each way because it was bike, BART, bike. Not a very fun commute and a lot more dangerous actually than what I did yesterday, I would say, being on the road on my bike and on both sides of the bay. And I thought about people there in the Front Range. And if you wanted to go, say, from Valmont to Rhino, you're probably looking at roughly the same amount of time, I would guess, during peak rush hour.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Yeah, depend. That's actually not a terrible. That's a pretty good little shot.
Let's say you're dropping down to Cherry Creek.
Well, okay. Once you're leaving the highway, then it's going to be tougher. Like my sister lives in Sloan Lake. Okay. I don't really know what that is. Possessive, plural, singular. We don't know. But you have to leave the highway and you start going through neighborhoods. Ooh, that's going to take you like over an hour. But yeah, it's a good question. I would say you could do that Valmont to Rhino, 25 minutes normally. You're right. You do it in rush hour. Oof, that's going to could take you an hour and a half probably. I mean, it could be a parking lot on that highway. Yeah,
it's the Chronicles of Narnia, but it's in the Front Range. I mean, if you had to get up into, say, Evergreen, forget it.
Yeah. Well, we know there's listeners to this show that live in Evergreen and commute to
Lovely
and fro.
Lovely area.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, it's not that bad. I'm like, I feel like it would always be that bad. But
Andrew, just enjoy a Coors, you know?
On the drive.
Just enjoy a Coors.
It's not. You got to go right by that Coors brewery every day to get home. You might as well swing off, grab a couple. But your conversation with Dylan Johnson was interesting. If for nothing else, then, you're out for a ride and you're like, well, what would happen if I flatted and I didn't have a tube? Tube didn't work, I don't know. Sometimes, there's something in the rim that's popping the tube. Could I put grass in my tire? No, you can't. If you've ever been wondering that, it doesn't really work. Don't try to put grass in the tire. That was quite an interesting conversation. I also, at one point, you asked him, did you think about taking your shoes off and running? I double flatted at Boulder Valley Ranch. I was probably, 4 or 5 miles away from my house. Only had one tube back in the tube days. I took the shoes off and I ran home. It was not a comfortable experience, but you're right. That is the way to go if you have road shoes on.
Yeah, I had to give you the Michael Barbaro, which I don't recommend using. I don't think that it's effective.
It is better. I've noticed that. Yeah, which is what I tend to do. Yeah.
Can you give me an emphatic Michael Barbaro? Yeah, I think with walking with your human feet, they are actually designed to do this. And I wear shoes as little as possible whenever it's warm enough to have shoes off. So I go barefoot as much as possible. And what I've found is you would think that you develop these robust calluses and you're like a Flintstone. You could just do anything. But the reality is, especially on gravel, the gravel can cut right through your calluses. It depends on the type of gravel. I felt like this summer I developed pretty gravel-specific calluses. However, depending on the size of the stone,
vertically compliant, laterally stiff calluses.
You can be in trouble. I think had I been Dylan, I would have at least tried taking my shoes off, and I would have tried walking barefoot. However, I haven't walked 2 hours in Dylan's shoes.
Literally, we have not.
And I have not. Yeah,
I think this settles the debate before, the debate that happens before every gravel race. Should I wear road shoes or mountain bike shoes? I think you just go ahead, you do the mountain bike shoes because the risk is too high that this could happen, right?
Yeah, perhaps. I have to say, I guess weight and aerodynamics are the issue. And maybe if you're at the level of being a lifetime Grand Prix rider, you just have to roll the dice, because if you end up in the situation Dylan was in, and I don't want to spoil it, if you follow Dylan Johnson, he probably spoiled it already. You saw what happened at the race. It took Dylan 6 hours to complete the 50-mile race. What I found to be really remarkable about his achievement is and we get into this in the episode, is he says, hey, always finish the race you start. And we had quite an interesting conversation, I think, about this topic. One thing that I brought up, Spencer, that this is something that I realized in 2013, the first time I did the race then known as the Dirty Kansas Half Pint. And there was not a lot of information on the internet at that time about these races. I don't think I've done a podcast episode about that first time I did the DK Half Pint. I might do one. Long story short, I ended up taking a left turn at 30 miles into the race and following the 200 riders. This is going to blow your mind. The course was not very clearly marked.
No way.
Yeah, I know. It's mind-blowing. So I get 10 miles into the 200 course at mile 30 before I realize, hey, I'm not going the right way. Started talking to some riders around me. They're like, yeah, I don't know if this is where the 100 goes, but this is definitely the 200 course. It was B road, so the really rough, I guess, technical gravel. I end up having to turn around. I end up riding 135 miles that day. And something that I've done ever since then, I came across so many people with mechanicals, is that I started wrapping a few strips of duct tape and electrical tape around my pump or around a tire lever, because it turns out there are a lot of problems that are catastrophic that are no longer catastrophic if you happen to be carrying tape. So with Dylan's problem, which was the carbon fiber filaments had peeled off inside of the actual bed of the rim, and I think that they were protruding and puncturing his tube every time he put a tube in the tire. I think a little bit of tape might have helped alleviate that problem, but he wouldn't have had the incredible story that he now has.
Yeah, it's sage advice, Andrew, to have you never know what you're going to need the tape for. Dylan clearly is younger than us because he didn't have tape. Didn't know what he would use tape for, but just get weird things happen out on the road. You got to tape them up. I would say the thing I've been thinking about, and also we should say the Tour de France route came out yesterday. I've done multiple pieces of content on that. We can talk about that in a second. Spoiler alert, probably good route for Tadej Pogačar. Probably any route you could come up for is good for him. But Big Sugar, he didn't win it. Matthew Beers, best name in cycling, wins the race. Cam Jones gets fifth, wins out of the Peloton. Couple things on this. Cam Jones wins the overall. He was on your show. He was on this show after he won Lifetime Grand Prix Unbound. Wins that, kind of comes out of nowhere. Then he goes on. He has to show up to Leadville, which is, you would say, the worst race ever for this man, because as he said, he's a big lad, probably over 200 pounds. I can't see the results. This is classic gravel. Can't find the results, but he finishes something like 10th or 12th, maybe top 10 even. That, I guess, is good enough to then keep him in the lead of the Lifetime Grand Prix. He wins the overall Lifetime Grand Prix. He was only a wild card entry. First person to ever beat Keegan Swenson in the Lifetime Grand Prix, if I'm not mistaken. Super impressive. Like, I cannot stress, I think we talked about him quite a bit last week, but I cannot stress how impressive this is. Just to roll in, not from here, from New Zealand, roll into a foreign country, be a wild card entry to the premier. I make fun of gravel a lot. I'm not that interested in it as a racing event, but this has captured my imagination, like in a way that no other gravel storyline has. Just to kind of roll up, very casual guy, and just be like, yeah, I guess I won the whole thing. I mean, what did you walk away from this thinking?
The reality is Cam was a World Cup level mountain bike rider before he got into gravel. He does have a larger frame, and if you take a look at his power files from both Unbound, Big Sugar, and Little Sugar, this guy has World Tour written all over him. This is a go-getter. Get this guy over to Europe.
He's 24 years old. He's not some like 30-year-old guy. So he's got
correct.
He's got tread left on the tires.
Yeah, and kind of as a publicity stunt, it seemed back in the Colin Strickland days, if we can still mention that name, they tried to bring Colin over to race Paris-Roubaix and be on the Classics team after, I think it was in 2018. He had a breakaway and won Unbound by, I think, 15 minutes or something. And I think that there's something to this. And I am starting to wonder, are we going to see more World Tour level development coming out of the junior ranks at, I obviously Cam is not a junior. It did make me think though, are we going to see younger riders who are spending time at these gravel races going over the World Tour? Because if you watch footage from inside the races, as I have, Spencer, I was watching Caleb Swartz's video from Big Sugar. He ended up finishing 6th after wrecking at 36 miles an hour on one of Big Sugar's signature downhill right off camber, loose, chunky gravel turns. I don't know if you remember them touting those prior to the event. He goes flying off the course, 36 miles an hour, massive wreck. These riders having to not just put out the watts to do these events, but I think what they're learning about positioning while riding on marbles and these tires that have no grip actually is probably pretty good preparation for moving around in a World Tour Peloton. So I think there's something there. I think Cam definitely could be not just an average rider in the World Tour. I think that he could really create an impact, and I'm curious to see if he gets signed and if he wants to leave behind the lifestyle of the Lifetime Grand Prix, the glitz, the glamour. As you know, the gravel rave featuring Miley Cyrus's sister. I don't have many reports from inside the event. I have seen some of the footage. I do know they had an aerialist at the center of the room, and some of the things that I saw, Spencer, I can only characterize as deeply disturbing.
I was disappointed that it was your sister. I thought someone got plastic surgery to resemble her and change their name, and I respected that hustle. But just a sister. I would say there probably won't be a big pipeline from gravel to the World Tour, only because currently, if you're a professional cyclist or aspiring professional cyclist, if you're not signed to a team by like 17, 18 years old, they think you're too old. Like by 22, no one's
Washed.
interested. Cam maybe could convince somebody, but think like Alan Hatherley, he was World Cup, or sorry, he's world champion in Olympic mountain biking, and
Back to
had to
back.
convince Jayco to sign him. Like he got on the worst World Tour team, and was, guess what, pretty good. Probably other teams should have thought to sign him too. I think there's just you have to be so into the system by the time you're 18, 19 years old. It's very hard. It would be very hard to be 20, 21, 22, jump from gravel into cycling. I mean, we'll see what happens to Cam, but yeah, the fact that it's so hard to go from European mountain biking to European road racing would make me think.
I think that's really different though. I mean, the only part of someone who's a World Cup rider is probably going to send me a DM about this. But if you look at the start of an XCO race, yes, there's a lot of contact, there's a lot of hustle and bustle. It does have a little bit of that World Tour vibe. But if you think about being out there on a course with live fire, Dodge Rams driving into you, you're having to go on the wrong side of the road. Did you watch the start of the Big Sugar race this year, Spencer?
Start.
All right. People who are listening, I know that we have a lot of listeners who are deep gravel, putting in 30 to 40 hours a week on the bike to be prepared for these events. But if you take a look at the start of that race, which they had to cut from 100 miles to 50 miles, because I think we talked about this last week, imminent tornado, like classic Midwest situation, have to get these people out of there. Because of that, it didn't seem that they had the same level of safety measures. And this is not an exaggeration. Within 2 miles, they're riding into oncoming traffic. They're splitting around islands. It just reminded me, again, going back to BWR, Kansas, a little bit of that vibe, but much worse. And then it continues all day. So I think there's just this jostling and having to deal with elements more like European road furniture and having to maneuver around in a group of people that you're not seeing in XCO mountain biking. And Spencer, you're right. They're at the world tour level. We see younger and younger riders being recruited. I think we talked last week about how maybe you can predict what the engine might do, but not necessarily how those athletes might mature or how they might show up as leaders or human beings once they have a life-changing amount of money when they can't even drive a car. But I think it's kind of a TBD situation, and I would just invite you to maybe drop that elitist flat irons mentality and step into more of the disruptor mindset that we have here in Maine Tech Week.
When they can just, if they can get on Max, I'll watch it. I'm not hunting down the live stream on Instagram, but I think it's also, we should mention, it is fundamentally a different sport. Like if you took Matthew Beers, I mean, if you took Riley Amos and put him in a road race, he would have to learn how to race a road race. Like it is quite different.
Yeah.
Like that probably scares a lot of people off about like Cam. Like he's 24 and you think we're going to sign this guy. And then how long is it going to take him to be a serviceable road rider?
I honestly think he could come off the bench and do it tomorrow. That's my feeling about Cam. And Matt Beers, of course, was at UAE. He was a stagiaire. And then he did the reverse Viking and came into gravel.
That's what a lot of the best gravel riders are.
Yeah,
it's like
they're actually
you develop on the
riders.
road, and then like
and then your talent slowly drains over time.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Like it is a sharpness you have. Like Simon Palud. He was second at he was like one of the reasons Cam won Unbound because he went away with him. Right. He was on Trek Segafredo and two-door as recently as last year. Yeah, and he comes in super powerful, and then you see like the farther you are away from the world tour, the slower you get over time. That's the impressive thing about Cam. You see a lot of people come in with big palmares, big resumes, and they're not that good, if we're being honest. But Cam is motivated. Same thing with Simon. Congrats to him. But these guys probably didn't have the success that they can. You know who I'm talking about. There's just certain people that come in that have a lot of name recognition, have a lot of success from the road, and it doesn't feel like they ever take it that seriously. And it's one of the reasons I'm not that invested in gravel, because it feels like it's not really about the racing. But Andrew, so you think he's going to be back? To me, this is the interesting thing about gravel. It's like, what motivates Keegan? Well, he just lost, so maybe that's motivating. But do you think Cam comes back, or is he somewhere else next year?
I think that Cam should be somewhere else next year, and I think he's coming back to gravel. And the other big news, if you follow this, is that the Lifetime Grand Prix has announced bigger payouts, and they've become more transparent with their selection criteria. For those of you who have a memory that exceeds 12 months, the first year of Lifetime Grand Prix, a rider's social media presence and ability to produce content seem like major criteria to get them into the field. This year, it's very oriented, and it's become more oriented around performance and results over time because, Spencer, this is an athletic competition. And I think as we've seen greater and greater talent come into gravel, it's now almost entirely oriented around what it should have been oriented around from the beginning, which is how good are you as a bike racer at these events. I will note, though, that if you take a look at the field from this year, I mean, if you don't have a content machine behind you, like, what are you even doing showing up at these races? Because I don't think there's any way for you to have a career unless you have a full-time content machine operating around you. Like,
well,
satellites.
What do we think? So Cam won like 20,000 for winning the overall.
That doesn't even cover the gas bill or buying his used Honda Odyssey.
Well, now I'm trying to remember. I think we asked him. We maybe asked Dylan about it, but it sounds like maybe some of these guys don't pay out of pocket for that. That it's the bike brand that pays for that.
Yeah, if we take a look at the state of the bike industry and now with tariffs, I'm not sure how much
that's
money
where I get confused.
There is going to be to go around. Yeah,
about gravel, it seems like. Can you imagine what these brands are shelling out to take a full crew of riders to every Lifetime Grand Prix event and support them? It's very expensive. Like the U.S. in general is just a really. You want to go to Bentonville for
Yeah.
a week and a half? Like that's expensive, man. That's where
It's funny. I actually thought about this because I think that Spencer and I probably will end up going to Big Sugar next year. We can't really.
Dylan made it sound like the worst race ever. He's like, it's like dangerous. And
I don't think we're going there for the racing. Will we show up in the 10-mile race and dominate? Will we have a world tour rider? I can't specify right now. Eating some wind? Possibly. I just think it's an event that we're going to be at for reasons I can't disclose. Is it related to the gravel rave? I can't really say that right now. And when I think about going there, you're exactly right. It's like visiting Monaco or something at this point. Yeah.
You're honestly not. We could go to Nice for 2 weeks cheaper than we could go to Bentonville for 2 weeks.
Absolutely. I believe that's a factually accurate statement.
And that, I mean, we don't have to get into the cost of living in the U.S. on the show, but that baffles me to some extent that these brands are okay, like eating these costs to get. I mean, some of these riders are very good that I'm looking at, but you wonder like how many units are they moving of trek bikes, of canyon bikes? So I still don't fully understand gravel, but that's people, including me, give Lifetime a hard time. Like, hey, this is a sporting event. You shouldn't be selecting people on their social media campaigns, but it's an upstart event, it's upstart sport. They have to grow it at all costs, and that's how they grow it. But then, you have people, I don't think Cam Jones was selected, right? He just grabbed the wild card spot by winning Unbound. So imagine he doesn't get selected. He can't afford to go around by himself. We never know about Cam Jones. That easily happens if he doesn't step up and win that race. That is one thing that I'm curious to see what gravel does with. But question for you. Have you seen the Tour de France route 2026?
I have.
So we don't have to go through it in detail. I'll just do a quick. It's in France, mostly south. I mean, Paris, it goes to Paris to finish, but it doesn't even get near Paris in terms of north-south. Like they are completely ignoring the north because we've spent quite a bit of time in the north the last 2 years. The implication of this, what happens because of this, the second and third order effects, Andrew, there's a lot of climbing because the south and central of France is very mountainous. They go to 5 different mountain ranges, start in Barcelona, go straight up to the Pyrenees, summit finish on stage 4, summit finish on stage 3, brutal summit finish on stage 6, brutal Pyrenean stage. So we're getting into it really early. Then you go to the Massif Central, you go to the Vosges and the Alsace region, you go to the Jura Mountains, and then you're into the Alps. So there's basically some sprint stages and hilly stages sprinkled in between mountains. First individual time trial, you're going to love this, stage 16. Sorry, Remco, you're not getting any time on TdF. 8 mountain stages, 8 summit finish, or I define that by final kilometers that are like more than 4% up. So uphill summit, whatever. 8 significant ramps finish. 6 maybe sprint stages, 5 hilly stages, which by hilly is like maybe 12 to 15,000 feet of climbing. 2 time trials, 1 individual. This is to me the most interesting one, maybe stage of the race. 1 team time trial in Barcelona, 19 kilometers to start the race. What's funky about this one, you take the time on the rider. So it's not on the team. It's not like cross country where the 4th rider stops the clock. The time is taken on the individual rider. There's 2 climbs on this course. So the question is, do you nuke your team on the first climb and ride solo to the finish, which is on top of the second climb, or do you go slower and nurse your teammates over the climb so you have teammates for the rest of the course? Going to be interesting to watch. And Andrew, are we going to see UAE attacking each other on this course? Because you get that too. Like if you're Red Bull and you have 4 GC riders all competing against each other, are they trying to drop each other and not help each other? I'm quite fascinated to see how this time trial plays out. We have a team time trial to start. Really tough stage on stage 2, finishing in Barcelona again, and then a summit finish on stage 3. So we're getting right into it at the start of this race. And I don't know if you noticed this, kind of weird. Stage 19 finishes at Alpe d'Huez, 128K. So that's a short stage. Stage 20, this is like 5,500 meters of climbing stage. That's a lot of climbing. finishes at Alpe d'Huez again. So we have 2 Alpe d'Huez days in a row. It's almost like an OCD person's favorite Tour de France. Like, let's just do the same summit finish again. I want to see the exact same finish again. It's not really the exact same finish, though. They go up the backside of Alpe d'Huez. But that was kind of what stuck out to me. And then, I know you're wondering about this, they do finish with the new circuit in Paris, not the old boring circuit.
Is this going to be a boring tour with all the summit finishes? That's what I think when I look at it.
This is what I asked Johan Bernil on our show yesterday. I was quite worried about this because, a lot of summit finishes, no downhill mountain finishes. And if you remember, that's dangerous, I guess, right? We should say that. That's maybe why they don't do it.
C-Rod.
Yeah, exactly. Like the last time Tadej Pogačar was beaten by a non-Jonas Vingegaard rider and from a GC group in a mountain stage was that downhill finish because it makes things more dynamic. Pogačar probably roasts them if that's an uphill finish or a summit finish. So I'm concerned about the summit finishes. My biggest concern, 6 of the last 8 stages are big GC set pieces. And most of those are tough mountain stages, especially stage 20. I mean, 5,000 meters of climbing, 5,000 plus meters of climbing. No one's going to do anything before that stage because your race could be won or lost on that stage. What have we seen in recent years, Andrew, at Grand Tours where stage 20 is a brute? Everyone sits around. I mean, the Giro's the biggest offender of this, where they have a brutal stage on stage 20 and everyone's afraid to do anything for the race before that.
Yeah, some of the most exciting stages, in my view, are those hilly stages where you get a rider like Matej Mohoric going on the attack, the breakaway, and then waiting to see if it sticks, and not like a drone hopper. Is this going to stick breakaway where you know that there's not a snowball's chance it's going to do anything other than have a lot of riders making faces for a long time. So,
hey, guy who got second at Unbound was on drone hopper. Those breakaways got him in shape for that.
Yeah, they did. And then we have, it's not a drone hopper rider, but there's the Italian pro late in his career now going to Visma next season. So there is something to putting in those miles out front of the Giro, right?
Well, I was trying to think, did I bring that up on this podcast or another podcast?
I don't remember. I was reading more about him this week. Quite a story. I'm still not entirely clear on what Visma saw in him.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he must have some kind of phenomenal gift, and we just don't know what that gift is yet, or don't have enough information in English language media to have line of sight into that. I mean, I thought that reading about that process, because Visma had reached out to him quite early in the season and he had to go through all the physiological and I would guess psychological testing and vetting to ensure he had just the exact right emo attitude to be on Visma. And, that's like a 2-month process before the signing is completed. And I have to imagine when they had him in the lab, like Drago, who we do have to mention on every episode of Beyond the Peloton, that he was perfect. Spencer, going back to this route, a question that I have for you, and you noted this in your newsletter, not in optimal parcours for Remco Evenepoel. Do you think that ASO is intentionally inoculating themselves against the possibility of Remco drama? Or are they trying to eject him from the race early?
They should want him there because that would be fascinating. I think there's a good chance Remco doesn't show up to this thing because it's that bad for him. I was also arguing yesterday, if a course can be bad for you, you're not him, as the kids would say. Like the course just has, good riders are good on all courses. Jonas would be second no matter what the course was. Tadej would win no matter what the course was. Those guys are incredible. I think there's a chance he doesn't go. But is that what is that not Remco? Is that what Red Bull signed him for? They spent a lot of money on this guy. Presumably sent him to the Tour de France. The route is interesting to me because it seems like ASO is pushing Pogačar toward a 5th win. Like could not have designed a better route for him. But I also wonder if we have just thought about this harder than ASO has thought about it. Like, do they just say, we like this route, these towns are going to pay us, they pay them a lot of money. Towns will pay, it's something like 300,000 euros for a start, 400,000 for a finish. So you're collecting a cool €700 every day for a start-finish town, and maybe a 7 million check for the Barcelona foreign start. Is that why the route happens the way it is? And it's not to do with riders. That's a very good possibility and would probably be my guess. And that's why they move around. Like, they've been harvesting from the north quite a bit. They got to let the north build those coffers back up. And they'll come back to the north in a few years. And then they haven't been to the Alsace in a few years. Oh, the Alsace towns have got some money to burn. We'll go collect some money over there. And that is kind of why the race moves around quite a bit. And I'd assume that the towns with the biggest bargaining power are the Pyrenean towns, because there's not that many towns in the Pyrenees that have enough hotels. So Po, I don't know how much they're paying. Corsican, they're probably getting a big deal, because what hotels are you going to stay in that area? There's not that many. In the Alps, they got to go to the Alps. So I don't know if Alpe d'Huez is cutting a big check. They're getting 2 consecutive stage finishes. Some economies of scales there. But I would say that's why this is happening. Probably not to do with Tadej or Remco, but it's fun to think about, fun to speculate about. Question for you, we were just talking about gravel. The sport is shrinking, like, significantly. The average stage length is down, I believe it's 10 kilometers in the last 5 years. Only one stage over 200 kilometers. That, like, the Giro a few years ago had something like 6 stages over 200 kilometers. These are short stages. I would presume they think that's action-packed. Are you sad? Do you like the short stages, Andrew?
No coincidence that this route announcement comes just days after Big Sugar, as I noted, dramatically halves the distance of the Big
and
Sugar
it was an incredible
Classic.
race, yeah.
Yeah, incredible race, action from the gun. I think the bigger question looking at the route is, how is Cavendish going to fare with 3 flat stages before stage 9? Like, those are 3 opportunities for him to stack on his historic 35 victories. Like, that Cavendish is totally bored and thinking about coming out of retirement. I guarantee the guy has thought about it.
I'm trying to say this diplomatically. I'm friends of a Cavendish, and I have a mutual friend. And I saw that friend with Cavendish this week, and I don't think he's coming back, is how I would put that.
Okay.
He doesn't look Drago ready, let's say.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. But
he looked like he could be on this podcast. That's about how in shape he is at the moment.
All right. Never say never. I think he's going to take a look at this parcours and definitely think about coming off the bench. And we, of course, have not talked about the team time trial, which the only thing that could make it worse than starting with the team time trial in Barcelona is if they made it a prologue length team time trial. That would be something. And they had it
like a nice 6K
like a 6K team time trial at Futuroscope. And I think they should mandate the riders are on 19 millimeter tires with 150 PSI. I actually, Spencer, I was thinking this week as I was riding around on my Lauf Utald with 32s, thinking about, wow, this just rides so much better. It's super fast. It's fun to ride. And I remember doing this road race in LA in, I think it would have been 2003, Devil's Punch Bowl, which is a classic road race. They're basically a gigantic climb and then like a 50 to 60 mile an hour downhill. And then you do it over again. And I remember doing this event and turning to the guy next to me who told me our tires were the width of pencil erasers, basically. And I turned to the guy next to me and he told me, I pumped up my tires extra hard for this race. I put it in 150 PSI.
Got to roll fast.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, like, this is incredible. This guy's flying. That's what I'd like to see in that team time trial.
Remember the last time they were in Barcelona, team time trial at the Volta, they just did it after dark?
Oh, yeah.
Some of the teams got light, some of the teams pitch black. Let's see. I heard that was because, I don't know if this is true, that the seat of power in Spain is Madrid. Barcelona is, we don't need to get into Catalonian politics, but it is a separate thing, wants to be separate from the country. They designed the course in Madrid. they don't look up that the sunset time is different in Barcelona than Madrid, and that's how they set start times for
That's
that
incredible.
stage. And then it was
Yeah.
dark because guess what? Barcelona is quite a bit to the east of Madrid. But Andrew, I was Big Sugar. Was thinking about Big Sugar in relation to the tour. What if they released this route the morning of the Tour de France
Right.
and nobody knew about it, and that, like, gravel style, like, hey, here's the route, kids. Why
Yeah.
don't you go do it? Would that be exciting?
That was pretty interesting. I thought about this a lot because I'm not a big fan of CrossFit, Spencer. In the early days of CrossFit, though, something that was interesting about the CrossFit Games, which is watching people exercise, that
Like, with kind of bad form, I don't really get, like, what's going on with those pull-ups?
yeah, and equally, hey, if that blows your hair back, that's great. Whatever people want to do that gets them out there and fit and active and connected to other people is cool. And at the same time, let's just like have a little bit of a sense of humor about it. We are watching people just exercise as a sport, and they would not learn what they were doing until the day of the event. I think that changed over time because they had to be prepared to do things like, oh, you're going to need to do a walking handstand for 2 miles because that's functional fitness. So that's what that Big Sugar thing reminded me of, and it wasn't, "Hey, the morning of, we're letting you know." From what Keegan and other athletes were saying, it was like 20 minutes before the start. They didn't know what they were doing, and that I don't think that that's a great way to run an event if you can avoid it, and apparently they could not avoid it. However, it does become an entirely different sport almost when you don't know what you're about to do.
Yeah, you just have to roll up. You get one bike. So you're doing the
Yeah.
time trial on your road bike. Unless you want to race the whole thing on your time trial bike, then maybe you can do that. I don't know. I think it would be kind of thrilling. Can you imagine the scandal that you'd have teams paying ASO
Yes.
for
Yeah.
advanced copy of the.
Yeah.
And speaking of scandal, you've been on this for a minute, and I just want to make sure you get your correct your proper respect on this. 2 years in a row, Matthew Vanderpool has had objects thrown at him into his wheels at Paris-Roubaix as he's off the front. Your first thought on both of these was, this is clearly a gambling thing. Someone
Yes.
someone with weight is about to lose money, whether that be a book or a gambler, and this is potentially even mafia-related fixing. I
Yes.
thought maybe that's not true. It's a big story just broke yesterday in the NBA that it's so wide ranging and widespread. I don't fully understand it, but it seems like players, and this is what happens when you have really obscure prop bets, like Jonte Porter to score less than 5 points, and then Jonte Porter puts money on it or tips people off that he's going to fake an eye injury, and then he can't go into the game. So of course he doesn't score 5 points. The problem with doing this, kids, is how many people are betting on that? Not many people. So if a professional gambler suddenly puts $100,000 on Jonte Porter not scoring 5 points a game, and then he has an eye injury and gets out, there's algorithms that alert them that this is suspicious and you're caught. It's kind of what happened. They caught players doing this. But then the thing that I'm still reeling from is one of the coaches, Colorado legend, Chauncey Billups, was hosting mafia card games, like poker games. And this is what rich and famous people love, playing poker. They don't want to do it legally. I still don't fully understand this, but he would be the front man for these games. People would come in to play these games. Pretty good idea. The tables have x-rays. They can read what hands you have. People are wearing sunglasses that can read through your card. So these are all fixed games. The mafia is making a lot of money on these schmucks coming in, losing millions of dollars. How this ties into the gambling ring, I'm not quite sure, but you would guess, oh, are they bringing people in? You know, that's how they get you. Then you're under their thumb, and then, oh, we need you to alert us to maybe the fact that you're not going to play tonight. Maybe your eyes hurt. So I think that's how those are connected. But it does kind of speak to this underbelly that you've been hinting at for quite some time about how gambling could be affecting the sport in ways that we don't expect. And I would definitely say this, I did not expect this, and it was organized crime related.
you have to think back to other incidents as well. Sagan, I believe, with the flag in the wheel, right?
Well, yeah, I've thought a lot about this. So it was a sweater hanging on the fence, but I don't think that was
Allegedly. Yeah.
premeditated because it only was an issue because Sagan, he was riding very close to the fence and his handlebars caught it. And then, if you remember, Philippe Gilbert brought into the sport this idea of like, hey, let's attack from 90K out because that's how he won that
Right.
Tour of Flanders. He would have gotten caught, though, had Sagan not been taken down by the illicit sweater.
And this perhaps was the beginning of going from 46 centimeter wide bars to what are people running now? 24s?
Yeah, I guess they're stuck at what's the minimum next year? It's like 40 or something like that.
Yeah,
42.
you also have to think, Spencer, I don't have a tinfoil hat on right now if you're listening. If we're thinking about the 2026 season following what we saw happen at the Vuelta, this is a bit cynical, but hey, let's go ahead and go with this.
I was wondering about this during
Right?
the Volta, yeah.
Yeah, so you have some kind of geopolitical related cause that people are protesting around. Certainly you could use that as air cover to disrupt the race if you wanted to change the outcome, and talk about outlandish prop bets. And I agree with you that that's why these things are traceable, is because when you have large amounts of money moving around obscure positions on these marketplaces and someone gets paid out, well, I think you've identified who the person is who potentially is manipulating the event. But these protests, and who knows what will happen in the world in the next 12 months, but that would seem to be pretty optimal air cover to have people disrupt an event where you can actually like be right there and touch athletes. And I don't have the feeling that we're going to see some super heightened state of security at the Tour de France. I mean, we went through 20 plus years of war when it seemed like the Tour de France, I was always freaked out. I thought this is the softest target in professional sports, and I thought something bad might happen. I'm glad it didn't, obviously. But now that people have kind of seen I can show up, you can do these things, nothing's going to happen to you really. Maybe you're going to get tackled. What's going to happen?
Yeah, I guess we've solved the problem, right? There's no more Israel Premier Tech. They've changed the name.
Oh, there'll never be a political issue again in sport. Yeah.
Yeah, or even that team. Like, well, Sylvan Adams still owns the team. So if people had a problem with that, won't they still have a problem with it? We've moved on, though. Barcelona, what have they ever let happen? That will never be an issue. But time trials are like in terms of not like soft terrorism targets, soft match fixing targets. The time it didn't really affect the race, but let's say Joao Almeida was an amazing time trialist. Let's say Jonas Vingegaard wasn't as good. They shortened that time trial by half at the end of the race, because people are going to be on the course. Like, what if that was the deciding factor? Like, the fans could have decided the outcome of the race. That has to go not unnoticed by certain people that make their living betting or hosting bets on bike races. That was kind of interesting to me. To tie this all back together, I'm looking at Visma Lease a Bike. Not only did they sign a Pulte Visit Malta rider, they signed a VF Group Bardiani rider. So two guys from these breakaway teams at the Giro d'Italia, one of them 30 years old. And you think, wow, that's kind of strange. That's not even a young talent. But Visma, I would say, remember Bart Lemon? He was like he was a fighter pilot, Kermesse rider, older, not young. They correctly identified, like, this guy can offer us a service, and that's how Visma thinks about signings. Like, their power profile, their personality allows them to offer us a service versus UAE, who says, this guy sure is good, let's sign him. And then that guy's like, well, I don't want to work for the team. And then you have a disaster going on in the team. People aren't on the same page. They're not singing off the same hymn sheet. So maybe that's why Visma's doing this. I bring this up because promotion relegation finished. If you could track this thing through the final weekend last weekend, you were a genius. If you didn't, Uno X did win the final race of the season, the Veneto Classic, Giro di Veneto, something like that. Pretty impressive. They get promoted. Only get promoted. They finished 19th, but Intermarché is going away, so they get that 18th spot. That was impressive. They had to score a lot of points this year to do that. I didn't think they had it in them. Astana, not even close to being relegated. They were in certain relegation going into the season. Kofidis relegated. They're out. Doesn't really matter because they'll get automatic invites. Odile doesn't get the automatic invites. They'll get invited to the tour. Not much else because it's kind of a crowded scene down there, but they're gone after this year anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But the thing, Uno X and Astana, XDS Astana, like, I don't know if you noticed this, Uno X published like a 30-page report going into the tour about their thinking about the race, like all their equipment, why they selected the riders they did, what they hoped to get out of the race. They clearly had thought about it. XDS Astana, terrible team up until this year. They had a novel idea of let's look at everyone's power profiles and where they're good in the season and send them to races based on that. And what do you know? They do pretty well. Like, I think we are entering a new era where teams will have to think about things quite hard. And not in terms of, wow, this guy is good, he wins races, but looking under the hood and thinking, well, this person could be a little component in a machine that does well. I think we're seeing the componentization of professional cycling with this promotion relegation cycle ending.
Yeah, I would, when we had Richard Pluga on, we talked about this a little bit, and I'm not sure if they want to disclose it. I would love to hear more about the psychological profiling they do of riders and how they think about the mix of people that they're bringing into the team and how they potentially would work together, which if you've ever been on an executive team or in a senior leadership position at pretty much any company, this is something that's happening constantly. Is they're called different things, but basically psychological evaluations are happening. And then the CEO is typically looking at how are these group of people going to interact and are they the right personality profiles for how that individual specifically wants to run the business or not. So I would be really interested in that. And Spencer, have you been holding out on me? I haven't read this Uno X report. Where is it?
I was all tied up. Actually, Sir Bradley Wiggins showed me it was during the tour, and he was like, have you seen
Okay.
this report? And he gave me the report. I'll dig it up. I'll find it for you. I'll send it over. And he was surprised. He was saying, why would they do this? Like at Sky, we never would have done this. Keep it a secret.
Right.
But it kind of projects confidence. Like, you guys can know everything that we're thinking, but you can't execute it because you're not us. I like it. I think it projects confidence. But that is interesting I was talking to one of Visma's sponsors, kind of an interesting world that I didn't know that much about, but you sponsor the team and then there's sponsor liaisons at every training camp, at every race. And so I was talking to their lead sponsor liaison, and this person has been to like every volcano camp. Like, she's on or I shouldn't say she, they're on the volcano with all the riders like during these camps. And it's like, wow, what a treasure trove this person is. They're in the back of the car during the races, and they were saying they know all the secrets but would never reveal them because they like the culture of the team so much. But it's that emo culture you're talking about. And you must be right, because this person would never reveal the secrets they've learned at the Visma camps.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not until they're on the show. But what an interesting, I would like to know all about these volcano camps, but what a funny, I never thought about it, but there must be liaisons from almost every sponsor because, if you're the component sponsor, if you're the bike sponsor, the wheel sponsor, they might have questions. They might need something optimized and you have to be there to do it. But what an I would love to be invited to one of these to go to the top of the volcano with Jonas and Wout. How interesting that would be.
Yeah, and when you're a professional athlete in any sport, you're spending almost all of your time with your teammates. What is slightly different about professional cycling is things like these training camps or competition. You're not just going away for the weekend or for a day with your team. You're living on a volcano with this group of people cut off from everything in your life for some of these volcano camps are now 2 months long, and then you're going into a month of competition. So I think the composition of your team and the personalities is more critical now than ever before. And Spencer and I have talked about this off camera, and we will never talk about it on camera. But for any of you who have lived with your coworkers and have done that for long periods of time, which I have done,
Yeah.
and it's an interesting experience, and it's a little bit different than just going and clocking in at your job.
Especially when you reach a certain age. It sounds appealing and fun at one age, and then you become a little bit older. I remember a quote from Lance from one of the documentaries where he's like, "Yeah, I showed up to the Astana camp, and it's kind of weird." I was always wondering, like, what does that mean? But now that I'm around the age he was during that comeback, I absolutely know what he's talking about. It's like, what the heck am I doing here with these 22-year-olds? But yeah, that is now I'm reeling. I'm reliving all these experiences and wondering what I should say and what I shouldn't say. But Andrew, to just leave you with something as we go away.
I'd love that, Spencer.
Tadej Pogacar, pretty good end of the season, you'd say. 4 straight victories, wins Lombardia, wins Worlds, wins European, just attacks on the downhill because the uphills are boring. Did not go to an altitude camp after the Tour de France. Is all the Volcano's days numbered? Is this worth the sacrifice?
Of course, it's worth the sacrifice. I think the bigger question, and we didn't get to it, is the bizarre 4-person race that went down with Pog, Vingegaard, Roglic, and Del Toro, right?
Yeah.
That was so, I mean, it seemed to me almost like a post-Tour de France criterion.
Well,
That
I
was
don't know
kind
if
of,
it is almost like that. I think it's
yeah,
almost literally
but
like that.
but I recommend going and watching the interviews with the riders where the 4 of them are sitting awkwardly as if 4 aliens have come down from outer space and then were they in Andorra? What country were they in?
I think they were in Andorra, probably for tax reasons. Not in the EU, not in the Schengen. Different tax rules there.
Yeah. And yeah, I think it's you should go watch this interview because these 4 individuals and anyone who can win a Grand Tour, they're a very, very different kind of human being. And it's very interesting to see 4 of them like teleported to one one location at the same time. It's quite a deal.
Maybe the tour, maybe they should all have to share all the top 4 have to share a hotel room and it's
Yeah,
rotating in and out. And then
that
we
would be
have access.
optimal.
Yeah.
Well, and it should be 3 beds and 1 cot,
And
right?
the fourth place
You
person has
get
to
the
be in the cot.
roll in bed. Yeah.
I like that a lot, actually. That would be so interesting.
Yeah,
But
I think we've come up with 2 big upgrades that we could see in the Tour de France in the future. I think one is if you're in the top 4, it's this concept, 3 single beds, or actually maybe we have 1 double, 1 single, and a cot, right?
where you couldn't guarantee the double, though. You might not have that in some of the towns.
Yeah, that's true. And then there would be like the fantasy suite on this show would be you get, I don't know, like 40 minutes in air conditioning when it's greater than 90 degrees. So you'd have to compete to have the air conditioning privilege. And then we add in this layer of we're just going to change the distance of the race within 15 minutes of the start. Let's see what happens.
Man, we've made some big upgrades. Our brainstorming did not go over well with some fans. I got a note that was like, I just feel like someone needs to call you guys out. I heard the dumbest idea I've ever heard, shortening Grand Tours to 2 weeks, which I didn't think was that controversial.
Actually, I think it's a great idea. People get really mad. I mean, just this idea of tradition. Listen, people, the Tour de France was invented to advertise a newspaper.
Like a
Okay.
conservative right-wing newspaper,
Yeah.
I believe.
I'm not sure how beholden we need to be to tradition. This isn't Hammurabi's code, you know?
And the reason, maybe we didn't say this, I feel like we did. The reason for shortening the Giro and the Vuelta would be so you could have the stars could race all 3 Grand Tours. I think it's currently too hard to do. But I think the sacrifice would be worth it because you would potentially get the big stars able to race all 3. This person did have a good point of there's so many 1-week races and 1-day races that could be cut. And that is correct. I've no defense of the Tour of Holland or there's World Tour races that I didn't even know existed that pop up. A Tour of Guangxi would be the obvious offender, but I don't know if you noticed this, the Tour of Switzerland quietly got cut to like 4 or 5 days. That used to be like a 15-day race. But I think we are finally seeing the contraction that This gets people really fired up. You talk about cutting the Tour of Switzerland from the calendar. Woof, your DMs are going to get lit up. But some of these races, I do kind of wonder why they're there and what purpose they're serving, even from a business perspective. Like, is Volta Catalunya making money? I can't imagine it is. Maybe it's worth it to the Catalonian government to have that race, and they just pay for that.
So Spencer, what you're telling me, I didn't get a DM from this specific individuals. I get a lot of other DMs. So this concept of we're going to cut some races to give to others. So this person is pro cycling socialist.
Yes, exactly. I do think we need a socialist revolution. We need Mandami as the head of the UCI, because we do have to. I think there's too many. Well, is this socialism, or is this maybe this is like the Doge? There's too many mouths to feed in professional cycling. We have to cut some of these hanger-ons off.
Too many generals and admirals in professional cycling, for sure.
Get them out of there. Yeah, it'd be better if. Now I'm trying to think of programs that could. What is the USAID of pro cycling? But
well, I have to say though, Spencer, as we're talking about this topic, and I know we've talked a lot in the past, including that conversation on the last episode about how we might change the duration and composition of the race calendar to enable the very best riders to show up at every race. The Lifetime Grand Prix doesn't get everything right. And you know what they've done? They've aggregated this group of individuals who, at least within the United States, these are the best people racing gravel. There's also the Gravel Earth Series and the Global UCI Series. But I think that Lifetime Grand Prix is onto something here. They have a limited calendar. They make sure all the same riders show up and compete at these events. And they've created some pro wrestling level storylines. And you get people like Tire Jesus, Dylan Johnson, The Long Walk, 2 hours.
It's the same thing with mountain biking. Like, I know,
right.
I just know the World Cup will have the best riders in the world, and that's all I have to know, and I can turn it on. I don't have to follow a confusing calendar, which is, yeah, I think that's maybe not the future. But even people get really upset about it, and it's an interesting subset of professional cycling, like road cycling, because really intelligent, like professional journalists will say, like, well, you can't cut the Bemin Classic, because they don't say this, but it's like, because I grew up watching that and I have a fond memory of it and I don't want it to be gone, I think is a lot of times what it comes down to. But that also shows you why professional cycling is, I guess, different from other sports, because you have such an emotional connection to it. And that's why it's difficult to make reforms. But I do think cuts could be helpful. I mean, I'm just looking at Pogacar's schedule from this year. Add the Volta and Giro to that. Boom, that's the schedule. Like, he just did all the good ones. The UAE Tour, that's the best race on the calendar. He did Strade Bianche, San Remo, Flanders, Roubaix, Amstel Gold, Flèche, Liège, Dauphiné Tour, Quebec, Montreal, World Championships, European Championships. Maybe we cut that. I don't even know why that exists. And Lombardia. That's the schedule, folks, with 2 more Grand Tours mixed in. Be there.
I have an even more radical idea. This one just came to me. And the initial idea that I had was, and I think we might have learned that we're moving in this direction with UCI gravel, because I believe at Gravel Worlds, correct me if I'm wrong, Spencer, wasn't there some commutative property around if you had World Tour points or points from the Mountain Bike World Cup, you got gridded higher at the start?
It was kind of like make your own rules, that they just need a Vanderpool at the front of the race, basically.
Right. Yeah, I'm not fully committed to this idea. Let's at least entertain the idea. What if you could earn World Tour points across disciplines?
And you could have, you can earn them in gravel and mountain bike now.
Wow. I mean, I would love to see that teams competing, not just Tom Pidcock and a handful of other riders. That would be really interesting to see them compete across disciplines. And then you just have, boy, we're really going to get some hate mail now. But the calendar
becomes... did point out that these are different sports.
Like, they are different sports. And that's also what would be exciting about seeing, much like the Lifetime Grand Prix. It is pretty interesting where you have mountain bike events like Little Sugar, you have gravel events, Unbound, you have high altitude. Something that this is a serious idea. I would love to see an American Classic. And I think at this point, what if we had in the middle of the Classics period, the Unbound course, but with world tour teams come and compete on the Unbound course in, I don't know, March?
No, why would they? They're busy in the middle of the classic season.
But we need an American Classic. That's why.
Well, I don't. Canada's done this. Like Canada, cases closed. They basically created two top tier 1-day races out of thin air, and we can't. Apparently, Maryland is going to a stage race. Did you hear about this?
Okay.
But well, I guess Philly would be the American Classic, right?
Right.
That's back on the calendar.
Yeah. I mean,
You're not going to get
let's
top
have a
tier
real
riders.
monument. Let's have Unbound. Let's make it mandatory. Let's get all the world tour teams there.
I think Unbound is too long. It's not interesting. It's too long. The race breaks up like
It's the American Lombardia.
it's like 11-hour race.
Perfect. Get them over there in
it's
September,
too long.
October. I like this. I think that there's something here.
Nobody would do it. I mean,
The Waltons will get behind this and make it so.
the Waltons won't get behind it though, because this is a question nobody's asking. How long until, because Lifetime, people forget the Lifetime Grand Prix. Lifetime is a huge corporation, a gym chain of high-end gyms. How long until the Walton Grand, like the Waltons are like, we're not promoting Lifetime's events. Like we're doing our own events now.
Why? So it's specifically Stuart and Tom Walton, and I'm wondering, like, do they have any kind of financial investment in Lifetime? I have no idea, but that would be an interesting thing that might happen.
Yeah, that is interesting. Do they have?
I'm gonna guess the answer is no, because I feel like I have a pretty solid knowledge of some of their investments in health, wellness, and cycling, and I don't believe that's the case. However, that doesn't mean it might not happen in the future, right?
That business feels a little stale for them though. Like
Yeah,
brick and mortar gyms, you just hope people forget to cancel their gym membership.
yeah,
That's like for us. They don't need to be doing that. They've
yeah.
already made it.
Probably
I
not.
love Lifetime. I would love to be granted shares of the company if you'd like to come on board as a partner. But Andrew, I do have to run home alone for the week. He's got to get the kids ready for school. Got to get out of here. Anything else before we take off?
We didn't really get into it. Go check out the updated Lifetime, like the specific rules of the Lifetime Grand Prix in 2026. That'll be interesting. And I think that Emporia may already have something underway to bring an American Classic to our shores.
It's not happening. I mean, but I think the American Classic is Unbound. Like, I think that's just what it is.
Yeah, but its position on the calendar, it's ruined an entire year for Mate Mohoric. Like, it's just like not at the right location, time-wise.
I also think it's just too hard an event. Like, no one who's making a living from professional cycling would say, I'm going to train for, I mean, what are the top times now? Like 9.5 hours? Like, are just a brutal 9.5 hour race? I feel like that's too hard.
Isn't that a Quinn Simmons training ride?
That is I was thinking about that as I was saying it. I was like, I saw there's like a big thing on Twitter now that everyone thinks that these end of the year training rides from pros are to cover up your like hematocrit doesn't spike in the off season suspiciously. But it's like your body doesn't know the year. It's
Right.
not, it's a continuum. Like, yeah, you need to have training load into the fall so that when you start training hard again, these guys, by the way, they're like ramping up at the end of November. They're going to take 3 weeks off, 2 weeks off, maybe. It's not like, oh, there's no point riding right now because the season's over. Well, yeah, the body needs to stay in shape and you need to put big training load onto your body to then have an adaptation. And that's what they're doing. I don't think it's some suspicious thing that they're riding hard in the off season.
Yeah, it's what you do. There is no off season, actually. I mean, we've talked about this with modern nutrition, the volcano. Yeah. I mean, gosh, I'm going to have to reach out to some of the gravel pros I'm in touch with because I think I sent you a screenshot of this. It was Alexei Vermeulen and I don't remember who the other pros were, but they were like, one of them was zipped into something that looked like a body bag and there was an air compressor. I was just like, what?
Yeah,
What's
I saw that. I didn't quite
what's going on?
understand that.
I'm going to shoot Alexia a text. I'm curious what that was. Yeah.
Tom Danielson had a good point about this, that, and we've not tested this in a double-blind study, that the idea that, oh, the off season's here and you lost all the condition you had from that year, and then your training was just building back to get the same condition, that no one ever got any faster. And now the idea is you're constantly building, you're constantly improving. You don't need to sit around not riding for months on end, because it just, you surrender all the gains you've made and then you spend all your time trying to get those gains back. Now everyone's just continually improving. If this sounds exhausting, it's probably because it is. And it's why it's very hard to be a top level rider. And you see guys who used to be top level riders who no longer are. But I think that is the thought now, that you've taken wow, Van Aert just finished his off season, like right now. And he was posting videos of his off season and he was mountain biking. So I don't think these guys are taking that much time off.
He could have done Unbound during his off season had it been in October. I'm just putting it out there. Yeah.
Well, okay. Do you know what race just happened? Is the Mexican National Championships. Should the U.S. National Championships be in the fall at the end of the season?
No, they shouldn't.
You think they should be where they are currently?
No, I don't. I think that they should probably be in the spring.
I think like Aussie Nats.
Yeah.
Like, we have warm parts of the country.
Yeah.
Well, in the spring, like, the problem is if you do it in the spring, no one's going to show up because they're all in Europe doing their jobs.
It needs to be in Tucson in January.
I actually love that idea. Tucson in January would be perfect. Do we go Kenya style and our national championship is just in Europe? Like, we're like Kenya will do their national championship in Portland or Eugene, Oregon or something. Do we just do it in like the outskirts of Paris, or do we just Girona is where the U.S. national championships are?
I actually think that the 2026 national championship should be on the Big Sugar course in Bentonville in November.
I would like that more than the current one on the Big Sugar course. Very that is road cycling. That's the heart of road cycling. But I got to let you go, Andrew. Thank you for talking today, and we'll be back next week.